Man, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EOS. 10 out of Jake, man, I'm rocking with y'all like y'all rocking with me. I got a guest for y'all today. Go ahead and introduce yourself, bro.
Yeah, my name's Scott Purvis. I'm from Broward County, Florida. In prison, they call me Psycho.
And how much time did you do inside a Florida State prison?
Well, when I first went to prison in '88, I did 2.5 years, and then when I got out and came back in '91, I did 22 years.
Damn, that's a lot of time. What were the charges that sent you to prison the first time and sent you to prison the second time?
Okay, the first time I went to prison, I went for battery on a Leo. I guess they resisting arrest with violence and auto theft.
And what was it for the second time that you went to prison?
Second-degree murder, constructive possession, and then they had a bunch of other charges like possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and I pleaded guilty to all that and got 21 years. Oh, and then when I was in, I caught a charge too.
How old were you when you went to prison the first time?
20.
20, so you were about 23 when you caught the murder charge?
Yeah.
And are you able to get into any detail on that or just slightly go over what happened?
I was a young dude, man. I was doing drugs and got tired of paying for them. And me and some friends went around robbing people for drugs. And during the course of one of the robberies, I shot the dude and killed him, and was caught almost immediately. The cops chased us down. You know the rest of the story. A lot of people try to, I got a body and all that shit. Yeah. Well, I don't feel like that. I feel bad about that and remorseful about that. Somebody's life taken for a little bit of dope ain't cool.
Definitely. And I mean, that's very important for people to hear too, because a lot of the youth these days, they look up to people that have committed crimes like that don't have remorse, and they don't understand the pain behind everything that can happen and everything that takes place when something like that happens. Now, how was it for you, just being that young with a charge like that, going to court and hearing how much time you've just been given?
Well, there was a couple aspects, to this whole thing. One, and I'm not a racist individual, but I killed a black dude, right?
Yep.
So I went through it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I went through it, prison all the way, no protective custody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I made it, but a lot of people don't make it in that position. At that time, I was actually happy because I thought I would get a life sentence. Second-degree murder carries from 10 years to life. It's up to the judge.
Now, was there a specific reason why you didn't get a life sentence and it was the 22 years that you did receive?
One of them, I pled guilty. The other reason, my lawyer got up there and explained that it wasn't like this guy was selling drugs and it's a game. It could have been me, because a lot of times it's the other side of the coin where the other guy gets killed.
Okay.
And I told him, look, I'll plead guilty right now. My lawyer was like, just hold on, I can get it down lower. But I said, the judge offered me 21 years, and I said, come over here and let me sign that right now, because I wanted to be able to get out.
Now, I know when I signed my plea deal, it took like 2 weeks for me to get sent to prison. What was going through your mind at that time? You said that you killed a black man during the robbery. And I mean, we know how Florida is, especially being white. What was going through your mind at the time? What were you expecting to happen when you did get to prison?
It's like this. Even in the county, I know a lot of the black people from that area, and they know what kind of person I am, and I ran across some people from around there. And actually, I never even had no beef with anybody about that. You know what I'm saying? Now, his family, you know, that's a different story. But other people, I really didn't have a beef because I grew up around all them people. Yeah. I lived in a town, but they went to the same school that I went to and stuff like that. And I still communicate with people from there at this time. But my mind was, I'm all in. It's time to strap up and go do what you got to do and try to get out of here. But in my mind, I thought I might not never make it. But you know the kind of mind you have to. You just go day to day.
How was it on your, before obviously the 22-year bid? How was it your first bid being in Florida State Prison in the 80s?
When I got convicted of that first sentence that we talked about, I was a YO. I went to South Florida Reception Center where they had just started the YO thing, right? And I got in there, and I had been around. I mean, I hang out all over the place. I know a lot of people. So when I got in there, I didn't have as bad as time. I fought when I got my canteen, a couple of dudes tried me. I had my homeboy hold the bag, and I fought, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? Then when we left there, we're way down in South Florida. Central Florida wasn't open yet, right? So the first place we arrived is Lake Butler. And they put all the jets in the cell block back then. And we got a rude awakening of what, and it was really bad back then. You think it's bad now when you went through there. When back then, when they have you sit on them benches, if you even look sideways, they're punching you in your shit. They catch you talking, they're snatching you up off the bench right there and beating your ass in front of everybody.
So Butler's always been just a horrible spot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you heard the stories about the gold teeth in the jars and shit. That's real. You ever you heard the stories about K-Wing Slim?
I've heard of K-Wing Slim. I've heard of
Charlie.
Yep. That
was real, and that was at that time. It was going on. That was going on.
What I also heard about I heard about a CO at Butler. I think it was either the 80s or the 90s named Cowboy.
Yeah.
And they used to say that he would take half a can of dip and put it in his mouth, and that he had beat numerous inmates to death. And he was arrested on a federal investigation and sent to federal prison. Did you ever hear that name, Cowboy?
Yeah, I know who he is.
That's crazy.
He's one of the first people first officer to get arrested for killing an inmate. Before that, never. When they killed Frank Valdez at Florida State Prison in 1999, which was a real big thing, right? None of them officers were convicted.
Crazy. I looked into that case too when you told me about that. I definitely want to get into that later in the story because that's insane. But was I-Block up and running when you went into Butler?
Yeah, I-Block's been running. You're talking about where you go upstairs, right?
Yep.
The cell block. That's been running since the 60s, since it was built.
That's crazy. I actually got cut going down those stairs. That's where I got cut at.
And that's where they used to beat your ass at, too, on them stairs.
Yep.
Cuff you up and throw you down the stairs, and then where the door comes out underneath, that's where they'd give it to you at.
That's crazy. Now, what was the main YO prison back then? Was it Brevard?
Brevard was just Brevard was an adult camp, and it changed into a JIT camp, but it was mostly ACI and Sumter. Sumter was a complete JIT camp, and that was the worst.
Okay.
And then ACI was the second worst. then Brevard, Indian River, and then what's that other one y'all went? Yeah, that was like for the good kids. You know what I'm saying? And ACI, they called them gladiator schools then. I went from Butler to ACI, so we traveled all the way up the state. We went to the Rock to pick people up, and so we're seeing all these prisons, and I'm like, holy shit, right? So we get to ACI, and they have when you come into the east, back then they didn't have no wire on the fence, believe it or not. Where were you going to go if you jumped the fence? Ain't nobody going to get away from there. Nah. Well, anyways, when you pull in, they take you to this. When you come through the main gate and everything, you come in this dormitory. It was called OU. You know, where you get orientated at. And it's got like church chairs that y'all sit in while people come in. That's OU. And that used to be real rough when you come in there, and they told you straight like this. They got up front and they said, you got pretty much two choices. You can either grab you a pair of panties, or you can grab you a knife and a garbage lid, because this place ain't, this is the shit here, boys. So you either gonna be men or you gonna be boys. And then, you know, they went through all their bullshit. They kind of classified you for your crime when you come down. You go to the west side or the east side. And when you go in, there, it looked like a chicken pen. There's like about 200 people on each side going down the walls, and then 2 rows on this side and 2 rows on this side going all the way back.
They dorms.
So we go in there, and as soon as we walked in, there was a couple other people with me. These dudes walked up, and the dude threw a pack of cigarettes at this dude and hit him in the leg with it. And I was kind of like talking to the dude. I said, don't pick that shit up. The dude said shit. He picked it up. And then they got on and said, they came up and said, you owe me $30 for that pack of cigarettes. They told the dude, right? I told the dude, don't pick the cigarettes up. You know, I've been through detention center, and I already see about 5 people I know, and they're coming to me. So I got oriented on the dorm by my homeboys. But a lot of dudes that come in there that didn't know, they knew real quick. The first night, during the day, we got in there during the day, most people were coming in and out of work. And so the dormitory wasn't that full. And then we went to chow, and then they had basements underneath the dormitories, and that's where the canteen, they had pool tables down there. I mean, back then, prison gave you a lot. You got a lot of stuff. They fed you good. When you got your canteen, you got cash money. ACI, though, didn't do that. They gave you coupons, like a coupon book with the number of money, and you tear it off. And so I had about 5 homeboys in there, and we were chilling and shit, and they were telling me what's going on and shit. They're like, you know, when you go to take a shower, everybody wears their boots in the shower.
Real.
And then they had, like, you know, they say, but homeboy said, all right, everybody, we all take showers now, because after 8 o'clock, the people that take showers after 8 o'clock are doing some other shit. Yeah. And one of the reasons why you wore boots in the shower is because of the fecal matter and whatever else has been spread through there throughout the night and day, because this was fucked up. They got you in a prison, and the showers are on the other side, on the back of the dormitory, and the prison, where the cops are at, are all the way in the front.
Yeah, it's in the front by the door.
Yeah, and the bathroom's way in the back.
They don't even see it.
So that wasn't good for some people, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then they're like, when nighttime came, this is what was really good about this place. We had a fucked up officer at lights out. We threw batteries, whatever. We could bring rocks in from the yard, everything. They'd get pounded going down there in the dark. When the cops got out of hand, all them jits would tear that place up. We had riots there on a regular basis. I've seen some fights. I've seen a couple people get popped with locks. And I seen this Jamaican dude take a screwdriver and stab this dude up for stealing his radio. But when the worst thing that I seen there, I was there about 3 months. I was there about 3 months, and we all went downstairs for our evening to go to the canteen, get your hair cut. They had 2 TV rooms. Well, when I walked down with my friend, and I seen everybody in the first TV room. So I'm thinking, yeah, man, they got something good on, right? And I stepped in there, and a bunch of dudes looked at me, and I didn't see no white dudes in there. And I was standing by the door, and I looked up, and I seen on the TV they were playing that movie Roots. And then not too long, and I kind of got an idea what was going on then. So I went back upstairs, right? Within 10 minutes, they were beaten. They seen a part in the movie where somebody was getting whipped or something like that, and they jumped on the police. They were throwing pool balls. Me and my homeboys, they used to give shovels to pick up all the canteen. We got the shovels, and we backed up on the wall. And when they come up, they were going after everything white. You know what I'm saying? Black dudes that I knew, they didn't come at me, but they went at some other dudes. Me and my homeboy Joe had them shovels, and we backed them up off us. And they come in there. When they finally did get control, they got everybody on their bed, and they handcuffed everybody to the end of their bed. And then the captain come in there and said, all right, him. And they beat their ass. They got they could bring a van down in there, right?
Yeah.
They brought the van in there. They threw them in the back, took them straight to UCI, to the Rock.
When you got into the YOs, because I know when I went in, if you weren't in a gang, you pretty much clicked up with your home team. Was that the same for you, or was it more racially segregated?
It was racially segregated quite a bit, but like dudes from Broward, we all knew each other. We were talking shit, but it wasn't like, I'd be like, hey man, what's up, homeboy? But it was like, we stuck, we stuck together, and there was only a few gangs really running in prison back then, and they weren't really deep. Like, now there was some at ACI. I had a guy that I ended up being in like 10 prisons with. He was a Latin king. He got caught with a little gun over there. He was in confinement over there for like a year and a half in that same bill. They had him back there for like a year and a half.
You got caught with a gun?
Yeah, a little 25. Well, there was a gun dropped off, and somehow they said it was his or whatever. He never actually got caught with it, but they found it out in the ditch out front. And he happened to be at a visit that weekend, and he's a Latin king, so as far as they were concerned, it was his, right? You had Latin kings and you had IMPs. That's International Posse. They used to be all through the prison system. They're out of Homestead in Miami, and they're a mixed group: Mexicans, blacks, whites. They were pretty big at one time. They were aligned with folk for a while, but then they went outlaw. But they were real big in Florida for a long time. They're called IMP, International Posse. They threw me in confinement, okay, at ACI, right? And they weren't feeding me. I got into a beef with the officer. They were spitting in my tray and handing it through the gate, and I wasn't eating. They were coming by fucking with me, So when I went out to rec, they had a rec thing in the middle. And my homeboy was working on the roof and he threw me a roofing nail and I stuck it in my shower slide, right? And I hadn't ate in 4 days. So when they came for showers, I grabbed the officer and put it to his neck and put a big thing. I ain't getting them up until they feed me. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
and then they come.
You took the CO hostage.
Yeah, you seen it on my charges. You can list them to show these people I'm not kidding about this. And I did that purely out of it. I was starving to death.
Yeah.
They came in there with guns and they told me they'll kill the officer and me before they let us go. I tried the crazy shit like I want a car and all that shit. You know, I was young. They weren't going for that. They took me to the West unit and they made me an adult. They said, you're no longer a YO. Then they took me to the Jackson County Jail and they gave me 2 5-year sentences run concurrent for it, right? You seen on there, I got 5 years for both the shank and the hostage. So when they did that, you think, how did I get out so quick? Back then, they took a third off. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, we were YOs, so they had tents at South Florida and Lake Butler that they were housing inmates in because it was so overcrowded at this time. Tents, you know, huge like circus tents.
Yeah.
And they had the bunks under the tents. It was like 140 to 50% overcrowded.
Damn.
So it was sweet because they'd take a third off, and every month when they gave game time, sometimes they'd give 180 days a month.
That's insane. And this is in the late 80s?
This is in the late 80s. You can check this out, right? And then this child molester that killed this kid, they took all that away just to keep him from getting out. He was at this prison. You know, a lot of people wanted to get this dude, right? Yeah. And the dudes, the kid that got killed's family got on a local radio station and said, if somebody gets this guy, they'll have canteen for life. And they killed the dude. They had at one prison I was at, Tomoka CI down in Daytona, they had this dude that he was supposedly toilet training his kid, and he beat his kid's head in the toilet till he killed him. So we tried to do that to him over there. The same thing.
That's karma.
Yeah. You got to take this. I went from the YOs to close custody, but this is before I even went out. They sent me down to Tomoka, right? And Tomoka was a kind of camp. There were a few people get killed there, but there was a lot of money there. When you got your canteen, it was cash. You could buy dope there like it was on the street, weed and everything. And then I went to adult camp, but I didn't have no problems because I was wild. I was ready to fight everybody. So they just pretty much left me alone, and I was smart enough to stay away from, you know, shit that's going to get you killed, you know?
And was there any like white gangs once you got over to the adult side? Like, did the gangs switch up at all, or the segregation?
Well, back then, they did, you know, they had some unforgivens back then, and there weren't very many of them, like all together. Like they had the swastika with the Iron Cross on their neck, and there'd be 2 or 3 of them in the camp. Well, I understand now they're real deep, right? But they were back then, they were like, I think just in their starting stages, right? But you really didn't have right gangs. You had like groups of whites that stuck together either through one guy's bringing in weed, the other guy's selling it for them, and they all cool together. Jacksonville had a lot of white dudes in prison, and a lot of them would, but really there wasn't really no white gangs per se. You had a lot of outlaw motorcycle gang members in there. and you had various different other groups, you know, from outside the prison. They ended up dropping my custody, and I EOS from Marion, which was a real mellow camp. It wasn't bad or nothing there. It was pretty laid back there.
Now, do you feel that through what you went through on your first bid, did that influence you to be better when you got on the
Oh
street?
yeah, because soon as I got out, I started picking up pistols. I was from like a middle class city in Broward County. When I got out, I started just like deboing everything.
Yeah.
You know, I was like a kid in a candy store in the suburbs. Then I started hanging out with different people and doing different things, and it just graduated. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Until, you know, I did what I did.